everybody's attention, please. Thank you. I want to welcome everyone again to this special evening, and I'd like to start by introducing everyone at the head table. I can't see very well, so I'm going to do the best that I can. At the end of the table is our president of the Wake County Bar Association, Louis Meyer, and his wife, Stacy. Then we have Superior Court Judge John Stevens and his wife, Linda Stevens. We have our Master of Ceremonies, Wade Smith. We have Chief Justice Burley Mitchell, who I introduced earlier. Of course, we have our honoree, Judge Robert Farmer. We have Senator John Edwards next to Judge Farmer. We have District Attorney Colin Willoughby. And my husband, Dan McLaren. We also have some other special guests I'd like to recognize this evening. We have at the table immediately in front of the head table is the Farmer family table, and I'd like to recognize all the guests at that table. Got Joe. Wait. I got to put my glasses on. We've got son Joe Farmer and Tracy Farmer. Son Jim Farmer and Angela Farmer, his wife. Daughter Caroline Farmer Belch and her husband Thomas Belch. And Connie King, Judge Farmer's sister-in-law. At the table to the Farmer family's table, to the right of the Farmer's family table. Oh! I'm sorry, I got so excited. Y'all can see how nervous I am. I forgot Mrs. Farmer, just about the most important person. To the right of the Farmer family table, we have one of our speakers, Mr. Lou Agnew and his wife, Martha Agnew. Mr. Agnew told me he did not want to sit at the head table with a bunch of lawyers. I'd also like to recognize at this time some of our special sponsors. This is something different that we did this year. We have sponsorship categories, and we have a number of people who have donated some money as sponsors. The silver sponsors are who donated $250 to the scholarship fund, and they include Bob Hensley and Perry Saffron. I'm not sure if they're here this evening or not. Gold sponsors donated $500, and that's the law firm of Moore and Ben Allen. And the platinum sponsor, we have one platinum sponsor who donated $1,000 in addition to purchasing a table, which is the law firm of Kirby and Holt, formerly Edwards and Kirby, and they are at this table right here. And I thank them all very much. And very briefly, I'd also like to thank my committee members who have worked so hard to make this dinner possible. And I'll just read their names. I won't ask them to stand, but I do appreciate their work very, very much. It's Mark Anderson, Collins Barwick, Jim Blunt, Walter Brock, Bill Wastrinsky, Christy Cameron, Paul Carew, Dan Clark, David Coates, John Cannell, Ann Estridge, Marilyn Corbis, Dick Fountain, Sarah Fox, Steve Glass, Bobby Jenkins, Keith Kapp, Louis Meyer, Ted Oliver, William Plyler, Al Purrington, our Executive Director, Alice Roman, Sam Southern, Denise Stanford, Colin Willoughby, Cindy Whitmer, and Randy Worth. Please give them a round of applause. Before I turn the program over to our Master of Ceremonies, Wade Smith, this evening, I just wanted to say a few words about our scholarship fund, which is the other reason that we're here this evening, to benefit the scholarship fund. started in 1989 in memory of Judge Edwin Preston. And the fund has grown from that time from $8,000 to currently it's $41,000 and growing. We've been able to raise the scholarship from $500 to $2,000, and with the success of this dinner this evening, we hope to raise it even more in the coming year. The award is given every year to a Wake County resident who is attending law school. And this, in fact, this year, one of the earliest recipients of the award is with us this evening, and he also happens to be the chair of the Scholarship Award and Oversight Committee. He's a practicing lawyer in Wake County, and he's also a member of our platinum sponsor, Kirby and Holt. Would you welcome Bill Bystrinsky? I've spoken enough now, so I'm going to turn the program over to our Master of Ceremonies for the evening, Wade Smith.
Thank you very much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests all. It is my great honor tonight to be one of your hosts and to join with you in celebrating the life of one of the most distinguished public servants I think that any of us will ever have the privilege and the honor to know. All of us know Judge Farmer and the many remarkable contributions that he has made. We have 4 speakers tonight, and we have chosen these people carefully because we have attempted to find people who have known Judge Farmer well and who can speak to you and who can, in effect, lead you in focusing your energies and thoughts upon the life and the enduring contribution of this great man. The first speaker tonight is our own very distinguished district attorney, one of the most effective district attorneys in North Carolina, our own Colin Willoughby. Colin?
Thank you, Cliff. Thank everyone for being here. In thinking about this, I didn't know what to say, but I do want to tell you, like Carmen Electra said to Dennis Rodman right after the wedding, I won't keep you long. That's good. But, okay, we came here to celebrate Judge Farmer, and some of these have been roast and some have been toast, but Bob Farmer is probably one of the most difficult men to roast that I can think of. Just the way his personality, his life. But we do want to talk about a few things, and some of them are funny. Some of them are more serious. But he has been for most of my professional life as district attorney, senior resident judge. And I've had the pleasure of serving under 4 senior resident judges as chief prosecutor in this district, and each one of those has had special feelings about, and most of the time I spent serving has been under Bob Farmer. And I was thinking about the remarks and about how I felt about him. I was rereading a book that I like to read every few years, that I first read as a child, the Robert Ruark book, about one of his books about the old man and the boy. And Robert Ruark was writing about his grandfather in Southport growing up. And the very first chapter, there were a couple of quotes that I thought were particularly appropriate. And you can tell by the way he writes this book how he feels so strongly of admiration for his grandfather. And he said that, he refers to him, he said he knows pretty near close to everything. And that's sort of the way I feel about Judge Farmer. And the other thing that, in that first paragraph, he said, the thing I like best about him is he's willing to talk to you about what he knows. And he never talks down to you. And we as lawyers, I think, sometimes probably have a special appreciation for that. And the way that we're treated, and the way we treat each other, issues of professionalism. And for us, Bob Farmer has come to epitomize that in Wake County. The times have changed over the years. Like myself, some of you have been here for a number of years and many of you longer. We've seen changes in the personalities of our judges and the changing of the personality of the judiciary. A long time ago, an old prosecutor said to me, he said, "Buddy, when you go in there, it's either your judge or their judge." But you know, that's not the case. He's always been our judge. We felt like he belonged to all of us. We've all felt like that when we went into his courtroom that we got treated with dignity and respect, and that whatever we had a fair opportunity for hearing. And that, in my opinion, is one of the greatest things we can say about a judge, is that everybody that appears before him or her has that feeling. And I think part of that may be because of his life and having served in the legislature, run for other political office, and be in touch with the people. Okay? Because he takes the business of the court very seriously, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. And he realizes that when we get away from the courthouse, that lots of people out there really don't think about what we do, and they don't think it's nearly as important as we do. And I was reminded of that during this past political campaign. We did our first polling in my race, and one of the things that we found out was that fewer than 1 in 20 people knew who could name 3 Supreme Court justices. But more than 2 out of 3 people could name all 3 of the 3 students. And I think Bob Farmer has realized that what we do, we feel like this is the end all, but he has realized that this is only part of the world, and he has had a wonderful knack for dealing with folks when they came before him. He's been so innovative in the criminal court system. Over the years, we've had the opportunity to work on a number of projects together. He's always been looked at ways to make the court system more efficient and more open to the public. And we've been through a number of ideas about how to reduce indigent costs. And earlier tonight, I was talking with a couple of civil lawyers about how his call for action from the civil bar to help out with capital litigation a few years ago prompted so many folks to pitch in and help out at a time when we desperately needed it. Making grand jury service easier for ordinary citizens to come up and serve in shorter periods of time. Those kind of things were innovations that he has come up with. The scheduling of homicide cases, taking over the calendar at our request to sit there and do the administrative, non-glamorous things that make our court system run so well. That he has just instilled professionalism in each of us, and he did it long before that became a buzzword in bar circles. And he's one of those people that didn't talk the talk, he walked the walk. And he set an example for each of us. And one of the things I think that has made him so effective is he has the ability to make each one of us want to not disappoint him. And the idea that when you appeared before him, you wanted to be professional. He kept you from just his presence and his personality, kept you from maybe being short. And if you did get tense, he had the right thing to say to soothe the lawyers and bring the matter back to where it ought to be. Through all that, he's had remarkable humility through all his successes. I do want to tell one little story that some of you may have heard before, but it was, we all know that he has been humble. He's been particularly proud of his family, but in his professional life, he has always been low-key. Being in Wake County, we get the opportunity to get a lot of international visitors here. And with the Triangle International Visitor Center, people come from all over the world, and this happens to be one of the destinations. We frequently get judges and lawyers from other countries, and they'll come, and they always want to come to the courts, and they like to go and see the appellate courts, but they always like to come down to the courthouse and see the trial courts. And we had a group from England that came and, yeah, all those British folks were so charming with their accent, and they were around the court, and everything they were doing was, yes, my lord, this, and no, my lord, that, and I could tell, you know, he was a humble man, but he liked that. That went on for a while, and you know, after they had been there for their hour or two and left, and went on, after they left, he said, oh, yes, I like those fellas. I said, maybe you ought to talk to some of the folks on your staff about trying to emulate some of that. And I said, well, Judge, it's just the accent. He said, we say the same things. And he said, well, do you really? I said, yes. I said, just last week we were trying a case, and it's just the accent. You made a ruling, and I said, my Lord, no, Judge. He really has, I think, helped instill in this bar a spirit of professionalism, and that is not present in all bars. We really have something to be thankful for. We're all sorry to see his decision to slow down and enjoy more of life and reduce his stress level down there, but on behalf of everyone in the criminal trial, I always certainly want to thank you for your years and appreciate all you've done for us.
Thank you, my lord. That sounds It certainly is important that we have a person speak to you tonight who has long been a very close and dear personal friend of Judge Farmer. Lou Agnew is that person. They've known each other, played golf together for many, many years, and he is the person who did not want to sit up here with the lawyers. Lou, you come on up now. You've got the floor. You can say anything to these lawyers you want to say.
Sally asked if I would do this tonight. I said, why me? Of all people, she said, Donnie Stevens said we had to have one non-lawyer. He said Lou Agnew would be just about as bad as any. So it was with a great amount of trepidation that I came here tonight being the only non-lawyer in this congregation. And so I feel somewhat like the sacrificial lamb among a pack of wolves. Well, the only thing that convinced me to speak was that I remembered that Bob is a Carolina Ram, and I being a North Carolina Wolfpacker, this was the only chance I was going to get to roast the lamb. Many of you know Bob Farmer. This is Bob Farmer. First of all, I'd like to tell you that Bob is a man of many talents. And I'd like to tell you a few incidents that might illustrate some of these talents. The first one, he is a professional golfer. Now, you say, why is he professional? And that's because he's never lost any money on a golf. And that could be construed as he's never paid off his bets. But Bob is a very good golfer. He hits the ball straight off the tee, and you know, Donnie's played with him, you know, straight off the tee down the middle of the fairway every time. 140 yards. He's got several other shots that you might not know about. One is the chili dip, And he employs this when he makes sure he doesn't want the ball to fly over the green. He's got the worm burner. And he shoots this one when he makes sure the ball doesn't go high in the air and blow off course. And then he's quite an accomplished bloop maker. A bloop is the sound the ball makes when it drops in the pond. But seriously, he is a good golfer. And to attest for that, I invited Bob to be my guest at a tournament several years ago, Frankie Lemon Golf Tournament out at Wildwood. And Bob won an automobile. On the par 3, 7th hole at Wildwood, Bob took his driver out. 6 inches from the pin and won an automobile. It was a 1970 Mazda RX-3. Well, he was delighted because Joe needed a car. And he didn't know what it did. He said, "This is Joe's car." Joe had his mind set on a 1980 RX-7. Well, the car was in pretty bad shape. It had no lights, no license, no insurance, and no brakes. But Bob drove it home that time. You ought to be aware of he is still investigating these traffic violations. It also came to my mind whether he had reported that on his 1970 tax return. But Bob is a very civic-minded person. He wouldn't ever break any laws. He's so civic-minded that several years ago he enrolled his family and himself and his friends all in a CPR course with the Red Cross. And he was the star of the class. He learned how to do that better, got the highest grade. And shortly after that, he was on the bench one day, and a certain unsavory character came in, and I think he'd been drinking, and he collapsed on the floor. Well, Bob, being fresh out of his class, realized this may be his chance. And he looked up, and sure enough, the guy wasn't breathing. Well, he didn't waste any time. He says, "Anybody know CPR?" Another one of Bob's talents is he is a real travel planner. He probably could be plan anybody's trips. He plans trips all over the United States and Europe. And he's so thorough in his planning that it'll astound you. He even gives you a packing list, and insists that you practice packing the night before you go to bed. I brought one of the lists, and I'd like to read a few things. Packing list: flashlight, extra batteries, extra bulb, extra flashlight, candle, matches. Then the second page was corkscrew, aspirin, Maalox, Kaopectate, Sal hepatica, and Vaseline. Next page was clothes. Wear what you'll need on the plane. Then his itinerary comes up. 5 a.m., wake up. 6 a.m., depart for airport. 6:30, park. 7, check in, 11 plane tickets. We recently accompanied Bob and Martha on a trip to London. And the first day we went to see Parliament, Buckingham Palace, Westminster, Winchester Cathedral, and the Tower of London, Old Bailey, and the British Museum, all in one day. All walking. And those who haven't seen Judge Farmer without his robe, you'll notice that his legs go clean up to his shoulder. He can take one step to an ordinary person's two steps. So the only way you can keep up with is walk as fast as you can, then run a little while. Well, we went all over London, and he had to see two things. He had to see Old Bailey, which we got there at 4 p.m., and they had already closed, and we couldn't get in, but he had it the sides of it. And then he says, we've got to see the Magna Carta. It's at the British Museum. It's 2 miles away, and we got 15 minutes to get to it. He struck out. You know. He was first. Martha Farmer was second because she could keep up with him. Then it was my short-legged wife and me. And so Bob got to the British Museum first. He rounded the corner, went in and says, where's the Magna Carta? This was holy to him, the source of all current law. And we got in the museum just as he got to the table. It was a glass-covered table. And he walked up to it, looked at it, and says, that's it. I'd like to tell you one more story that I think where all of his wanderlust originated. When he was, I think, in high school or early college, he made a trip to New York. And he was accompanied by a hometown boy named Billy Grimes. And they went, Billy Grimes happened to be the nephew of Ava Gardner. So they went to Ava's apartment in New York. And the story that Bob tells is he met Frank Sinatra there. And Sinatra spoke to him. And he talks about this all the time, got pictures. So I called Billy the other day, and I said, Billy, what was the real lowdown? What's the rest of that story? I said, did Sinatra really speak to Farmer? And he said, yeah. I said, what did he say? He said, get out of the way, you little son of a bitch. The last of Bob Callis that I want to tell you about is that he's been in public service all his life. His hidden interest and his long lifetime desire is hunting and fishing. He loves to hunt and fish and camp. And he never has had a chance. One time he had a chance to hold court down in Hyde County. And he went down to Swan Quarter and checked into Jarvis's Motel. Now those of you that are hunters and fishermen know that that's paradise to them, outdoors. You go in there and at Jarvis's Motel they serve you that fried seafood and oysters and all that good stuff, and you're right there close to the sea, to the wildfowl. And so Bob checked in one Sunday afternoon, had him a big supper of fried oysters, fried fish, and fried fatback. Then he went into his concrete block motel room on his linoleum covered concrete floor and sat on his spring mattress and was going to read by his 40-watt light bulb. He stayed awake till about 3 in the morning listening to the geese flying overhead until the hunters got up at 4 in the morning and him for breakfast. Well, Bob just loved it so much that he was at the courthouse at 7 a.m. No one else got there till 9, I understand. But he ran through 2 months backlog of judicial cases before noon and was back in Raleigh by noon. I asked Bob, I said, how did you like Hyde County? He said, it may not have been the end of the world, but I could see it from there. I'm not going to delay any longer, but there is one request that I would like to ask. And all of you guys out there that go hunting and fishing, camping, and if you need somebody to go with you that's an experienced outdoorsman and really loves it, ask Bob.
Thank you, Blue Agnew, for those most enlightening words about Judge Farmer. It's now my privilege to recognize a most remarkable man and a most excellent citizen and judge. I give you the Honorable Don Stevens.
Friends of Bob and Martha Farmer, so we honored tonight to share the podium with the Farmer family and with these very distinguished speakers. Up until December the 31st of 1998, it was my sincere belief that Robert Farmer was a law judge and a law-abiding citizen. You can imagine the absolute shock of my life when I discovered on January the 1st, 1999, that Robert Farmer is a common lawbreaker. I hold in my hand an important court document signed by 6 Superior Court judges of Wake County, signed on December the 30th of 1998, which is entitled Restraining Order and Writ of Prohibition. And it's captioned in the matter of purported retirement of Senior Resident Superior Court Judge Robert Leon Farmer. I cannot read, I don't have time to read it all, but it begins by saying, this matter is before the court in emergency session, sitting in bond on the court's own motion to consider the public outrage of the national emergency created by the purported efforts of Robert Leon Farmer to abandon his post as Senior Resident Superior Court Judge of Wake County and to embrace early retirement. And then we got a bunch of whereas. We start out by saying, whereas the Constitution and the laws of this great state permit judicial service to the age of 72 years, and that he's only 65, and that he's only served 21 years, and a lot of things like that. But the most important whereas that I thought was included was that we said, whereas Robert Leon Farmer is a man of such high moral character and personal integrity to such an extent that the court knows that Robert Leon Farmer will not be seduced by the enticing lure of early retirement at a time when members of his own beloved Democratic Party have succumbed to the beckoning songs of lesser sirens. And we concluded by saying, wherefore he is hereby prohibited, restrained, and enjoined from premature retirement. The order will run in perpetuity without right of appeal. Now clearly, folks, all you lawyers out there, you know that this order is clearly valid on its face. It was personally served on Judge Farmer on that day and read to him in the presence of witnesses. To our absolute shock and amazement, he defiantly retired 2 days later and became the absolute lawbreaker that he is today. And I tried to think about why he would be involved in such flagrant behavior. And you know, if you've ever been in a criminal courtroom, you've had some defendant jump up unsolicited, usually to the horror of his lawyer, and say something like this: Judge, I'm not a bad person, I'm a good person. I don't know how I got into this mess, but Judge, Your Honor, you know, my friends had me out drinking all night, and they got me into this mess, and Judge, I now believe my mama was right. I had been running with the wrong crime. And if Bob Farmer was on the bench, usually he would stop them somewhere halfway through that, and he would say, "Sir, you are the wrong crime." Well, when I came in here tonight, not knowing what it was, and explained what it was that Robert Farmer violated our order, I looked out at this group and I thought to myself, Robert Farmer has been running with the wrong crime. So, anyway, I'm here to speak to this crowd about our colleague, Robert Leon Farmer. Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote, "As life is action and passion, it's required of a man that he share the action and the passion of his time, lest he face the peril of being judged, never to live." In all seriousness, Bob Farmer has witnessed the action and the passion of his time at his seat, on his view, on the Superior Court bench for 21 years. He has, as we all know, tried the major litigation of our day, both civil and criminal. He has tried the famous and the infamous. Frankly, folks, some of you may not know it, but he has served longer this century, except for Buck Harris, than any other Superior Court judge from Wake County. Judge Harris served 28 years, Judge Farmer served 21 years. Judge Bickett served 19 years, Judge Bailey served 20 years. Judge Bilston Godwin served 15 years, Donnie Smith served 15 years, and Judge Preston served 13 years. And so Robert Farmer's 21 years on the Superior Court bench surpasses all of his fellow judges, except for the legendary Buck Harris. In his 21 years on the trial bench, Judge Farmer has been a lawyer's judge, and he has been a judge's judge. I think we all probably know what that is. A lawyer's judge is a judge that every lawyer wants Bob Farmer to try his case. Prosecutor, criminal defense lawyer, plaintiff's lawyer, insurance defense lawyer, because they do, they would get a fair trial. He would not take sides. He also was a judge's judge. That means when a trial judge, had a complex legal problem on the bench about which he or she had no clue what to do, and they would take a brief recess, and they would call Bob Farmer or conference with Bob Farmer and seek his wise counsel and his sage advice. I can assure you that Bob Farmer actually tried a lot more cases than he ever got credit. And this explains how Superior Court trial judges could appear confused, befuddled during a trial, take a break, and moments later appear wise, innovative, and brilliant. For that reason, Bob's retirement has been a great loss to our trial bench. That loss has become more evident and obvious over the last 6 weeks. In fact, we are at a crisis level, Chief Justice and ladies and gentlemen. Now, our trial judges on the Superior Court bench appear confused and befuddled, take a break, come back to the bench, and are more confused. We all realize that we have reached a critical point in this crisis when any day now, a frustrated lawyer is going to say, "Judge, you used to be pretty smart. How did you get so stupid?" Of course, the correct answer to that question is Bob Farmer retired. We judges have been undergoing group therapy to deal with Bob's loss. Like any other group therapy for a loss, we've learned that we must accept the fact that Bob is gone, and we must honestly deal with what that means to us. That way we can face the question, how did you get so stupid? And give the appropriate response by former retired. Now, during these group sessions, I've held up flashcards to our judges to give them the appropriate response. I'm happy to report that Judges Manning, Cornett, Bullock, and Jones have worked through this, and they can give the correct responses. We're having problems with Judge Cashwell. Stay with me, people. When you ask Judge Cashwell how he got so stupid, his initial reaction is to say something about your mother. So tonight, I'm asking each one of you practicing lawyers out there to help us. The next time Judge Cashwell is trying a complicated case and he seems to be confused or rules incorrectly, we're asking one of you to stand up and say, Judge, you used to be pretty smart, how did you get so stupid? If Judge Cashwell responds, Bob former retired, then we will know that he is finally succeeding in dealing with Bob's law. However, if Judge Cashwell responds in some other way, you need to call me and tell me. And I will accept collect calls from the Wake County Fed. In addition to being a judge's judge, Robert Farmer is an educator. Let me tell you about that. When you take public office, we all know that for some mysterious reason, we become the honorable. So on the 15th day of December of 1977, Bob became the Honorable Robert Farmer. As we know, that title is often abbreviated using the letters HON. Those abbreviations appear with your name on practically everything, including, for instance, a list of financial contributions or contributors. If the reader doesn't know any better, those letters may be pronounced as they appear, H-O-N, HON. Robert is a devoted alumnus and financial supporter of his alma mater, the UNC Law School, where his daughter Caroline is a second-year law student. Martha Farmer tells the story, it's a wonderful story, Martha, that several years ago, a young UNC law student phoned their home one evening soliciting money for the school, obviously from a list of former contributors, and asked for, you guessed it, Han Farmer. Now, doesn't that just make all of us UNC Law School graduates so proud? So Martha, without correcting the caller or warning the caller, summoned Han Farmer. I understand that this young caller got several minutes of advanced judicial education right there on the phone, free of charge. And hopefully today is a far better lawyer as a direct result of that experience. Now, for several months after that down at the courthouse, we should have called him Robert the Educator, but we could not. We just called him Han Farmer. I've also come here tonight, you can call, I only have 10 minutes. I've also come here tonight to tell you that Bob Farmer has a darker side. Had he not taken up the law and become a judge, his life would have been very different. Those of us who know him best believe that he would have been a wine taster. Robert Farmer loves his wine. Several years ago, I underwent the dreaded experience of a 50th birthday party surprise, and after the initial merriment, Robert Farmer was supposed to make some appropriate remarks. However, the party had no sooner begun when Martha Farmer sent word to the hostess that Robert had gotten into the wine, and that if Robert did not speak soon, that he would not be able to speak. So Robert was rushed to the podium, and made his remarks, and so his secret never became public knowledge. I believe that it was Robert's love of the wine that prompted him to volunteer to be our very first drug court judge. You see, drug court cases involve all controlled substances, including alcohol. It was my impression that Robert just wanted to be close to the wine drinking crowd, which prompted him to become our first drug court judge. Robert has a particularly interesting drug court story that he always shares, and I hope I don't steal it from him tonight, but I would like to share it with you in closing. It involves a probationer who was cited back for drug court for consuming alcoholic beverages in violation of the terms of his probationary judgment for impaired driving. This particular fellow was employed as a bartender at the 42nd Street Oyster Bar, and he had been seen drinking a beer behind the bar during working hours in violation of the conditions of his suspended sentence. When the probationer was advised in open court by Judge Farmer of the allegation, he immediately denied that he had consumed any alcoholic beverage. Upon that denial, Judge Farmer confronted him with the fact that he had been seen drinking a beer behind the bar and that the observing witness was present and would so testify. The probationer responded that he was not consuming the beer. He said that he was simply tasting the beer. As an aside, you probably know that a probationary judgment does not define the word consume. Since this probationer seemed to contend that there was a significant legal distinction between tasting and consuming, in telling the story, Bob would always opine that this probationer was the kind of man that Bill Clinton could greatly admire. So we have this serious issue of the difference between tasting and consuming. Probing a little further, Judge Farmer asked the probationer how much of the beer had he tasted, to which the probationer very sheepishly responded, the whole thing. Upon hearing that, Judge Farmer activated the sentence, and as he tells the story, he gave the probationer a taste of the Wake County Jail. In conclusion, on behalf of myself and the Superior Court Bench of Wake County, as well as the entire Superior Court Bench of this state, there are 1,000 good stories and good things that we can say about our colleague and our friend, Robert Farmer. But we would simply offer this: of all of the public officers, by virtue of their office, who bear the title honorable, he has been and is and continues to be a most honorable man, and his life on the Superior Court Bench has exemplified all the virtues that a person in public office ought to strive for. Robert Farmer, we wish you the very best, because, sir, you are the very best.
Thank you very much, Judge Stevens. I have a note to mention that Phil Redwine was also a silver sponsor, and that we omitted to mention that. And Phil, wherever you are, our heartfelt thanks to you also for your generosity. I am most pleased now to invite to this podium one of our own, our newest United States Senators. A marvelous lawyer who was plucked from our midst only lately and placed unharmed on the shores of Potomac to serve as our newest United States Senator. I give you the Honorable John Edwards, member, United States Senate.
You know, in our professional lives, we have people that we feel strongly about, people we admire and respect, and we trust. And then we have people we love. And for me, those people would include people like Polly, and Sally, Martha, Farmer, and Judge Farmer. And just to maintain my credibility on this, Howdy, I don't love you.
You know, you're up there with Barney Frank, son. So I hope you haven't met
Touche.
him.
You know, there's a story they claim to tell on Judge Farmer, and I don't know if it's true or not. He'll have to tell us when he gets up here. But he was supposedly holding criminal court down in Robinson County one time. And two defendants were brought in, charged with a drug crime, came in and sat down to plead guilty. And Judge Farmer was in the process of sentencing, hearing the sentencing phase of the hearing. And the prosecutor came to the table and said, now Judge, both of them have their mothers here. And the two mothers want to be heard before you impose sentence on their sons. And Judge Farmer, being the reasonable, thoughtful judge that he is, let the prosecutor go back to the table, looked over toward where the mothers were sitting, and he said, you two mothers stand up. Whereupon both defendants rose. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I want to come back to Judge Farmer in a minute. I cannot come back and speak for the first time in North Carolina without talking just briefly about the impeachment trial. Because it was a unique experience in so many ways. The one thing that most of you probably know about is that I was one of the people chosen to preside over the deposition. So I sat as close as I am to David Kirby right now for Monica Lewinsky for 6 to 8 hours. I will not talk about that in public. It was an interesting process. The depositions were interesting. But there was one place during the trial that truly caught the moment that people would understand. We were on, I don't know, the third or fourth, fifth week of the trial. It was a Saturday afternoon about 4 o'clock. And they were showing snippets of the depositions. I don't know if y'all remember that phase of the trial. But it was on a Saturday afternoon, the prosecution was showing. And I'd already sat through every one of the depositions, so I knew what they were going to say. And we were all sitting there trying to stay awake. And I saw, one by one, a series of Democratic senators go back in the cloakroom. First it was Chris Dodd from Connecticut. Then it was Teddy Kennedy from Massachusetts. Then it was John Breaux from Louisiana. And last but not least, Fritz Hollings from South Carolina. And you all, if you don't know it, and I've learned it, these are the bad boys in the Senate. Well, they all left, and they'd been gone for a few minutes, and I got to thinking, I was bored anyway, I got to thinking, where in the world did they go? So I got up and walked back into the cloakroom, you know, Saturday afternoon at 4:30. What do you think they were doing? They were watching a ball game. So they're all crowding around watching the ball game. And they said, Johnny, come sit with us, watch the ball game. So, of course, I had to go sit down for just a minute. And we've been watching the ball game for a few minutes, and this guy from Connecticut comes down the lane, double pumps, slam dunk. Now, you get any 5 males together in front of a basketball game, and somebody does a double pump slam dunk. What's going to happen? Yeah! Off the floor of the Senate, here comes Jay Rockefeller. He closed the door quietly behind him. He said, it's not bad enough that we're out there trying the impeachment trial of the President of the United States, and you guys are back here watching the basketball game. But you're cheering, and we can hear it. Now, that's the inside story. I have to also tell you, there were a couple of remarkable moments sitting in your chair, and unfortunately, this all happened in closed session, so the American public didn't get to see it, over my objection. Sitting in your chair, though, and being called on and walking, as the way this happens is, the entire Senate is in session, all 100 senators are there, and they turn off those little mics that you sometimes see on television for these closed sessions. And so to speak, you have to actually go to the well of the Senate and speak to the entire Senate from that place. And to have your name called, as I did, to go walk down, and your heart is thumping, and you're nervous, and you're scared to death, as I was, and to go to the floor of the Senate and speak to 99 other senators on whether the President of the United States should be removed from office is a remarkable feeling. And it is a feeling of extraordinary responsibility. And I have to tell you, it was, while not pleasant and while not enjoyable, you could feel the enormity and the history of the moment. And I was so, and I said this as I was finishing my speech. I said, you know, I've lived my life practicing law, and for me, the law is a sacred thing, as I think it is for so many of you. And I developed an enormous respect for those senators who sat through this trial for me, both Democrat and Republican, because I watched them, as partisan as it seemed, and as partisan as the vote seemed, I watched them struggle with doing the right thing. And everybody comes to the right, what is and is not the right thing from a different perspective. And I have to tell you, I came away from this process with an enormous, enormous respect for the people who went through it with me and developed many friendships through that process. But that respect for the law that I do believe is sacred, I said it and I meant it, it came from the heart, is a respect that has developed over a long period of time. And one significant component of my respect for the law is the man that we're here to honor tonight. Because I have to tell you, if for the next at least 6 years, I hope longer, I'm able to conduct myself with the same sort of dignity and respect that Judge Farmer has conducted himself, there is nothing better I could ever say about myself. I said it at the beginning, and I'll say it at the end. I love Judge Farmer. He is the